And what? That's it. Getting something? That's why another class.
From the floor? Okay, do you need me to come and help you with sorting out the sound? So, are you getting sound from the podium? You should be getting sound. SABC happy? ENCA, are you happy? Do I need to speak louder than this? It's a little bit. Oh yeah, they need to increase it on that side, yeah? Okay. So push it up a few decibels, Baba.
And then from the floor, are you happy with the sound from the floor? Okay.
Okay. Okay, there's a little bit of feedback though, can you hear that?
I'm happy.
So is the feedback sorted? Is everyone happy? So we can start. Okay, great. All right, good afternoon colleagues. Apologies for the late start. To those who had gone away for the Easter break, welcome back. Hope you had a restful and reflective and meaningful Easter break. Let's get to it. I'm going to start with the signing of the Employment Equity Amendment Bill, which the President has signed into law, the Employment Equity Amendment Bill of 2020. The Amendment Bill seeks to advance transformation of South Africa's workforce by setting up equity targets for economic sectors and geographical regions and requiring enterprises to develop transformation plans. The bill amends the Employment Equity Act of 1998, Act number 55 of 1998, with new measures to promote diversity and equality in the workplace. Among its key provisions, the amendment bill empowers the Minister of Employment and Labour to set employment equity targets for economic sectors as well as regions where transformation is lagging. The amendment bill also empowers the Minister of Employment and Labour to regulate compliance criteria, to issue compliance certificates as per Section 53 of the Employment Equity Act. The Amendment Act allows the Minister of Employment and Labour to set regional targets, given that racial diversity in South Africa often has regional differences. The law requires employers with more than 50 employees to submit employment equity plans for their companies, spelling out how they will achieve these targets. Employers are then required to submit annual reports to the Department of Employment and Labour. More details will be in the statement that we will issue shortly after the briefing. And now onto the program. The President has just concluded a meeting that he hosted virtually this morning with several business leaders representing key sectors of the economy to discuss the ongoing interventions to maximize inclusive economic growth, inspire confidence, and create jobs. The meeting focused on consolidating collaboration between government and business. This cooperation between government and business builds on a strong partnership, as well as the establishment, brings on a strong partnership foundation that saw a successful vaccine rollout during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the establishment of the Resource Mobilization Fund aimed at providing support to government's Energy Action Plan. The President has agreed with business that there's a need for an acceleration to the resolution of challenges impacting key economic enablers, namely energy, transport, and logistics, and crime and corruption. On the eve of the 5th South African Investment Conference, President Ramaphosa is highly enthused by the collaborative spirit that continues to guide engagements between government and business, and more importantly, the commitment shown by business to take collective responsibility in resolving some of the challenges that are facing the country and our economy. Today, in fact this afternoon, in about 2 hours or so, President Ramaphosa will host a meeting this afternoon with representatives of organized labor on national ports and rail to discuss the state of the country's logistics system and the important role that it plays in our economy. The meeting follows an interaction on Wednesday evening on the 5th of April with South Africa's largest exporters who are reliant on the country's road, rail, and ports infrastructure. The meeting with large exporters was preceded by an engagement the President held with members of the Transnet Board and executive management here at the Union Buildings on the 28th of March, which discussed challenges facing the country's logistics system, including the declining performance of the freight rail network. Following these engagements, the President has been considering a set of measures that will add impetus to the work that is currently underway to improve rail and port efficiencies and in line with the government policy direction for the freight transport sector in the White Paper on National Rail Policy and in legislation such as the National Ports Act and the Economic Regulation of Transport Bill that is currently before Parliament. The President's meeting with organized labor this afternoon will further concretize a collaborative effort that will be coordinated from the Presidency. Tonight, the President will attend a dinner with investors who will be part of the South African Investment Conference. The dinner is an opportunity for investors to engage with the President over a wide range of issues and opportunities relating to investing in South Africa. Tomorrow, the 13th of April, the President will open and address the South African Investment Conference, which attracts delegates from varying industries in South Africa and across the globe. Over the last 4 years, the Investment Conference has realized about 1.14 trillion rands in investment commitments. The 5th edition of the conference is expected to meet and exceed the investment target of 1.2 trillion rands that was set by the President at the inception of the 5-year investment cycle. In his opening address, the President will reflect on the goal he set in April of 2018 and the progress achieved thus far. President Ramaphosa will also brief investors on the steps that are being taken by government in addressing the visa, transports and logistics, crime and corruption, and energy challenges. On the 14th of April, the President will meet with the Directors General. This is in line with his stated commitment to lead government's rebuilding of a capable state and to ensure improved service delivery. President will meet with the Directors General from across all national government departments. The meeting will discuss work underway at capacitating various levels of leadership, management, and critical areas of government service delivery. The acceleration of the President's priorities, as outlined in his 2023 SONA address, will also form part of the discussions. On Sunday, the 16th of April, President Ramaphosa will deliver the keynote address at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Business Forum in Cape Town, which will be held under the theme Acceleration of the Implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The AFTA Business Forum is intended to raise awareness about potential trade and investment opportunities that the African market presents in a range of labor-intensive and industrial sectors such as agriculture, automotive, pharmaceuticals, transport and logistics, amongst others. The forum will discuss a number of themes, such as the economic potential of the one African market, the challenges and especially the opportunities for trade, as well as how to increase intra-Africa trade to accelerate economic growth through industrialization and job creation. The forum will also explore the kind of policy tools that are required to establish or grow Africa's manufacturing and industrialization to increase value addition in the after-focused value chains, such as agriculture, pharmaceuticals, textile and clothing, mining, amongst others. On the 18th of April, the President will meet with the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa, SIFSA. This is in line with the President's SONA 2023 commitment to hold a series of sectorial engagements. The President will meet with the leadership of SIFSA. The purpose of the meeting is to open channels of dialogue between the President's office and this strategic sector of the economy. It is the first direct engagement between a South African head of state and this sector since SIFSA's formation almost 80 years ago. President Ramaphosa appreciates the metals and engineering sector as an integral part of the global and domestic economy. The sector is a vital supplier of inputs into major sectors such as mining, the automotive sector, the construction, and other manufacturing sub-industries. SEFSA as a federation represents 18 employer organizations who collectively represent in excess of 1,250 companies that employ approximately 170,000 employees. On the 18th of April, on the same day as the meeting with SIFSA, the President will host the winners of the Presidential SMME and Cooperative Awards to encourage public and private partnership. The Department of Small Business Development hosted the inaugural National Presidential SMME and Cooperative Awards, as well as the SMME and Cooperative Summit in November last year, with the aim of cultivating an enabling environment for the development and nurturing of innovative ideas and best practice across the whole spectrum of small business development in the country. More than 8,000 submissions were received, and there were over 4,000 confirmed nominations, and a total of 13 winners were awarded. Then on the 19th of April, President Ramaphosa will meet with the Presidential Climate Commission during a special sitting of the Commission attended by all its commissioners, including government ministers that are deployed to the Commission. The Commission will present its recommendations to the President following consultations on the electricity plan and the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan. In November last year, President Ramaphosa briefed the Presidential Climate Commission on the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan and requested the Commission to consult stakeholders on the plan and prepare recommendations that will be considered by the President and the government. The Commission has consulted widely with stakeholders and prepared recommendations on how to factor the carbon constraint into electricity planning, including short-term measures to address the power generation crisis. Colleagues, we then have a series of events from the 20th of April till the 28th of the month, which we will include in the statement, but we will provide more details closer to the time. And those events are namely the incoming Namibian state visit, which is on the 20th. On the 25th of April, the President will host a working visit by the President of the Republic of Finland, President S.V. Niinisto. On the 27th of April, the President will address Freedom Day celebrations in Klerksdorp, Northwest Province. And on the 28th of April, the President will confer national orders at the Sefako Makgatho Presidential Guest House. We'll provide more details on those events closer to the time, but I thought it was important to just outline them for your planning purposes. Thank you, colleagues. I'll be happy to take questions. Samgelo. Samgelo had his hand first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makwenya. Just a quick one from our side as the SABC, and it pertains to these questions. Has the President received any legal advice on the SABC board, and how far did that advice on the SABC board go that the President received, particularly knowing that that particular legal report, which was scathing on him, that was leaked recently, and it was also solicited by Parliament? And then secondly, when is the special envoy that the President is sending to the United States, when are they going? Who are those individuals that are on that special envoy? And on Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia, has he been invited to come to the BRICS summit in August? And what will be the main business of the envoy that is going to the United States? Is it going to soothe over and speak on behalf of South Africa to allow President Vladimir Putin to come to South Africa, and for South Africa to try and seek some sort of reprieve from complying with the statute of the ICC of arresting President Vladimir Putin? Then lastly, on the President, on the investment summit. This is the last investment summit before the end of this administration's term. Has the President met his target of that 1 trillion rand investment drive that he was on? Has he met that particular target? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Linda Lomasigane from ENCA. We would like to get a sense from the President whether he has received a briefing with regards to the Thabo Bester escape saga. This isn't just an embarrassment locally, nationally, it's an international embarrassment. So what briefing perhaps has the President received, if any, from the Justice Cluster with regards to the investigations, as well as the delegation that has gone to Tanzania? Does the President have an idea as to when these fugitives will be back in the country? And will there be anyone held accountable in terms of political accountability? Will we see heads roll in this matter?
Okay, thank you for those questions. So let me start with Samgelo, because he had quite a number of questions. Samgelo, on the SABC board matter, you will recall that when the submission was made to the President, there were areas that required clarification. And I think it is important to appreciate that before the President puts his signature either on a bill or an appointment, it is important that he fully satisfies himself, one, with the process that was undertaken towards the conclusion of that exercise. Secondly, he has to satisfy himself with the substantive issues. So the constitutionality of the exercise, but more importantly, the legality of the exercise. And so that clarification was not sought for any other reason except to ensure that what was in front of the President was in line with the Broadcasting Act. And there was nothing wrong on the part of the President in seeking clarification. There were objections that were received by the President, and those objectives were also sent to the Minister's office, and they were also sent to Parliament. It was also important for the President to understand how those objections were treated and managed. And so the scathing nature of that legal opinion is neither here nor there, to be honest, except to say the President still was duty-bound to fully satisfy himself that all processes that were undertaken were conducted in accordance with our constitutional prescripts, and that the information that was before him was in line with the Act. So there's nothing wrong with that. The delay in appointing the SABC board is deeply regrettable. The President fully appreciates the urgency of the matter. As you know now, the matter is in court, and the President is hoping that sooner or later there will be a resolution of some sort to this matter for the sake of the SABC and its stability, but also for the sake of our own constitutional democracy, which the SABC is an important pillar of. The US envoy, President Putin, attending the BRICS summit. So I think it's important that we characterize political, trade, and diplomatic relationships properly. The United States is a major trading partner to South Africa. One such trade mechanism is the AGOA Act, which you will be aware of. And on the normal course of maintaining these trade, political, and diplomatic relationships, there are a number of interactions that take place at various levels between the two countries. There has been somewhat an exaggeration of this pending engagement that is going to be led by Deputy Minister Bottas, which in our view is in line with regular engagements that we hold with all of our trading partners, including the United States. We must desist from a temptation that positions one country as the world's policeman, prosecutor, and judge, which is not the case. With respect to South Africa's position on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that position is well known and well understood. When President Ramaphosa met with President Biden last year in Washington, this issue was discussed at length. And one of the elements that President Biden appreciated was the fact that South Africa still retained an open line with both parties involved in the dialogue. President Biden then encouraged President Ramaphosa to continue his dialogue with President Putin, as well as President Zelensky, and to continue encouraging parties to find a way to resolve this conflict through negotiations. So that position is well understood by all of South Africa's trade partners who are concerned about this matter. This is an issue that President Ramaphosa discusses with all of his counterparts. The issue was raised during the Ugandan state visit when he hosted President Museveni. Equally, when the president hosted his Tanzanian counterpart, the issue was discussed. It's an issue of major concern to the AU and to the whole continent because of the impact of this conflict. And so when South Africa engages on this conflict, we're not engaging from a position of being apologetic for the stance that we've taken. We engage so as to encourage parties to find a peaceful resolution, to encourage all other interested parties to continue the dialogue with both countries involved. Recently, President Ramaphosa held a call with President Lula of Brazil. And again, this issue was discussed in the context of BRICS, but also in the context of your broader global stability that all leaders seek in this regard. So we shouldn't take this issue and blow it out of proportion that every engagement we have with the United States is over Russia and the Ukraine. We have a very vibrant people-to-people exchange programs. We have a vibrant trade relationship with the United States, and that relationship has to be maintained on an ongoing basis. Therefore, an exchange of deputy ministers or officials at various levels shouldn't signal some sort of escalated engagement that is out of the ordinary. It's within that context. Of course, the US and other partners will continue to raise this issue, as they should, raised the issue, and we will continue doing our part, not only in explaining our position, but in encouraging both parties in the conflict to find a peaceful resolution. The President has said numerous times that guns will not resolve the issues in dispute. It will only be through negotiations that we will see the end to the conflict. With respect to the invitation to President Putin, it's a BRICS summit that involves heads of state. So naturally, all heads of states will be expected to attend the summit. But now we have a spanner in the works in the form of this ICC warrant. So what that dictates is that there be further engagements in terms of how the summit is going to be managed, and those engagements are underway. And once they've been concluded, the necessary announcements will be made. I don't want to preempt the outcome of those engagements. Investment deadline. I think I said, Samgelo, in my opening that to date, the investment conference has realized over 1.1 trillion rands in commitments, and we are expecting that this fifth investment conference will take us over the line of that target. What is even more encouraging is to see the amount of projects that are now in place, whether they being they're under construction or they're already in operation. But it's encouraging to see that those pledges have resulted into some kind of tangible job creation as well as employment growth contribution. I do have with me some numbers, if you will be interested, that talk to some of those projects. I know the DTIC and Invest SA had shared some of them, but I can just share one or two. So as of March this year, March 31 this year, of the committed investments, 450.4 billion rands has flowed, right? This talks to a total projects of 231 at the value of 1.14 trillion rands, with flows of about 450.4 billion rands. That's about 39.5%. 83 of those projects have been completed to the value of 170.9 billion rands. 77 projects are under construction. About 28 are in early stages of implementation. And we do have a small number of projects that are delayed or on hold for whatever reason, and the value is quite small compared to the ones that I've mentioned. So that's really encouraging. So it's not only just a case of meeting the target that the President set 5 years ago, but it's to actually see these projects coming into fruition. And that's even more encouraging, and hoping that over the years, these projects will continue to contribute significantly to our economic growth as well as job creation. Slindelo, a briefing on the Thabo Bester saga. The President is fully aware of the situation, and the President feels that, indeed, this is an occurrence or an incident that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have been allowed to happen. It shouldn't have happened. It does talk to some weaknesses within the system, and those weaknesses are being attended to. What embarrassing as it is, what is encouraging is that we still have a system that is robust enough to respond rapidly to such cases. We have a system that can deliver results fairly quickly, as we've witnessed with the arrest that have been made, and there will be accountability because investigations are ongoing, and those investigations will result to more arrests and will result into people being held accountable. So in that regard, the President is disturbed that such an incident happened, but is equally encouraged that our law enforcement agencies are able to rapidly respond to such cases, and we do have to, on an ongoing basis, clean up our system. And it also talks to the work that is currently underway in terms of rebuilding the capability of the state at all levels and ensuring that we clean out these corrupt elements within our law enforcement ranks. Thank you. Ndebu? I see Slindelo has a question. Is that a follow-up to the response I've just given? Okay, Ndebu, maybe let's just give Slindelo another part.
Yeah, with all due respect, Mr. Makwenya, when you speak about the rapid response of law enforcement, Thabo Bester lived in one of the most affluent suburbs in South Africa for 10 months undetected. That doesn't speak of a law enforcement that reacted quickly. Has our system been hollowed out so much? Have corrupt elements taken over law enforcement to the point where a fugitive who was convicted of rape and murder could live in Hyde Park for 10 months undetected, with law enforcement having absolutely clearly no idea or just very slow on their investigations? Surely the President must be outraged. And I want to know if he has gotten a briefing recently on when these fugitives are going to be brought back.
Okay, so to the extent that there's been some failure in the system, that is acknowledged. There's no denial about that, and that's what the President finds disturbing. However, following that failure in the system, you do have, one, recognition that there was failure in the system, not only in terms of his escape, but in terms of when that escape was detected. But secondly, what I'm pointing out to is that once that was recognized, there was a rapid deployment of personnel and resources to, if you like, correct the situation. So apprehend the suspect, as it were, expand the investigation. That's why now there are people in court that are being prosecuted for related crimes to this matter. And on the basis of that, you cannot deny that you do have a robust criminal justice system that, despite failures or weaknesses somewhere in the chain, it's able to respond quickly to correct those wrongs. And with the investigations that are currently underway, the President is confident that people will be held accountable and that such incidents will be prevented from ever taking place in future. Oh, sorry, there was one last part of your question, Slindelo, in terms of has it been fully briefed on when the fugitives or the fugitive will be coming back. So as you understand and appreciate, Tanzania has its own legal processes. Those processes have to be allowed to run their own course. The ministers did announce that there was an official delegation that's currently in Tanzania that is engaging with their counterparts to see to the repatriation of the two. So with regards to that, there is no reason for the President or anybody to have any anxiety at the moment, except to say, let's patiently allow time for those processes to run their course, and the rest will flow from there. Debu?
Thanks, Ntebo. I'm with the SABC. Just one or two questions. On the investment conference, in fact, it was a foregone conclusion that the target would be met. I mean, looking at the commitments that were made in the last conference, are we likely going to have new targets set when the conference starts tomorrow? Let's say from this year until maybe the end of the term of the president, around 2000. in 28, are we likely going to see new targets? Secondly, how seriously is Malawi taking its diplomatic relations with South Africa? And I'm saying this against the backdrop of what had happened. I know the Minister of Justice is seized with that, but I think the Presidency would want to know. On the Bushiri matter, I mean, Mr. Bushiri evaded his trial in South Africa, fled to Malawi, but for some time now we've been seeking his extradition to come and stand trial here in South Africa. How seriously is Malawi taking our relations with them? Looking at the fact that, I mean, it's one of the least developed country in the continent, at least according to the UN. And how then do you want the UAE to take you seriously if a weak country, least developed country in the continent, in the SADC region, can treat South Africa with contempt that is treating? And again, on the Putin matter, I think that one has been travesty. That's my submission. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe let me start with your last question. We respect the sovereign rights of all countries, and we don't see weak countries as you've characterized it. I think what we have to appreciate, and you've mixed two issues here. You've kind of put Malawi and the UAE all together. What we have to appreciate is that each country within its own jurisdiction has its own constitution and set of laws that it has to abide by. And those laws guide the response that country provides to particular matters. How serious is Malawi in its diplomatic relations with South Africa? That's a question best posed to the government of Malawi, and the question best answered by the government of Malawi. On our side as South Africa, we will continue to use all means available to us via diplomatic channels to see to it that those individuals who committed crimes in South Africa are brought back to face those allegations and to be trialed in South Africa. That commitment remains from this administration, and I can even commit future administrations, because we are a constitutional democracy that's guided by the Constitution as well as laws that flows from that Constitution. The response from the UAE has no correlation to what we've seen happening in Malawi with respect to the Bushiri matter. As you know, we have the option, which the minister has said we will exercise, to appeal the decision by the courts in the UAE, and we remain in hope that we will have better cooperation from the authorities in the UAE, and we are confident that through those processes we will be successful in bringing those individuals to justice here in South Africa. We just have to respect that countries are guided by their own laws, and we have to then abide by those processes alongside doing whatever we can through diplomatic channels. Samgelo? On the investment conference, yes. Will there be a new target set? The endeavor to grow our economy, to increase employment, to advance society is an ongoing one. So there will be a new target. That's for the president to announce that new target, but certainly there will be a new target because it's in line with a stated commitment to continue growing our economy, to continue increasing South Africa's competitiveness as an investment destination, but also to alleviate the employment burden or challenge that we're facing in this country, which has a particular devastating effect to young people. So that ongoing commitment remains, and that effort will remain and will be part of the President's priority and focus, not only towards the end of this administration, even when he starts his second term as President of the country. Samgelo.
Mr. Makwenya, just on the issue of the SABC board, the matter that is subject here to the court, no court date has been set as yet on that particular matter. Why is there hesitation to appoint this SABC board? Is it a matter of one particular individual who may have been a group chief executive officer, a group chief head of news who may now be shortlisted to be on the SABC board? You may feel as if there's a cooling period that is needed. Is this a witch hunt against a particular individual? And then lastly, especially pertaining to Lee's story, or the story being covered on Thabo Bester, this happened in Hyde Park. Hyde Park, Vincent, and you would know what I mean when I say Hyde Park, not to put people's security at risk, but you know who resides in Hyde Park. And where this incident took place is a stone's throw away from that particular individual who's high profile, who stays in Hyde Park.
The number of high-profile individuals
You know the one I'm speaking
that
about.
reside in Hyde Park. The number of them. Some are even in the media. They are friends in the media. The number of them. So.
How much do those journalists ever stay in Hyde Park?
My good friend Reddy has a house in Hyde Park. A number of high-profile individuals that live in Hyde Park. I have former banker colleagues that live in Hyde Park, so not quite sure who you're referring to. But anyway, let's start with your SABC board question. And I think you were making a statement instead of a pointed question, but nonetheless, let's engage on your statement, Samgelo. Look, Samgelo, there are a couple of issues, and I think we've been transparent about these issues before, right? So the first issue was the president was handed a list of more than 12 names, and the president needed clarification on that part. Was that in line with the act? That's number one, and that had nothing to do with specific names in that list. It was a matter of being handed a list of more than 12 names. Associated with that were issues of vetting, whether the additional names were vetted as the 12. There was also an issue, as I've said, of objections, and those objections were varied. Some were on particular individuals, and when I didn't say individual, I said individuals. So there were concerns, for example, with a possible conflict of interest with one individual, and there were other issues with respect to other individuals. So again, it was important. Remember, Samgelo, the president does not conduct interviews. The president does not receive nominations. The president does not preside over the process. The president's signature is the last step of the process. However, it's not just a matter of placing a signature on a piece of paper. There is a duty to still be exercised before that act is conducted. And all the president did was to exercise that duty. And those letters are in public with respect to what concerns he had or clarifications he sought from Parliament. So your statement and your speculation couldn't be further from the truth, because it is public as to what were the issues that the president was raising, but there's no wish hunt here against any particular individual. So you work at the SABC, I've worked at the SABC. We both understand how the SABC operates, so I won't put too much focus on a particular individual. Then with respect to the safety of residents in Hyde Park, and the issue of this particular gentleman allegedly residing in Hyde Park. Look, the details, Samgelo, of this whole incident are going to emerge as the investigations unfold. And we will all be better informed as to what transpired from the beginning right up until the end. I think the concern that you are raising is a general concern that has been acknowledged with respect to obvious failures within the system to, one, prevent the escape from happening. It shouldn't have happened. Two, to be able to respond a lot more quicker once there were red flags being raised that pointed to an escape. Having said that, and I repeat again, those failures in the systems have been acknowledged and they will be addressed, and people will be held accountable through the investigations that are currently underway. I think we have to, difficult as it may be, take some comfort that we now have individuals arrested through collaborative efforts of our law enforcement agencies, their counterparts in Tanzania, and as well as private security firms that were involved. And so that should give us some comfort that you cannot commit such a crime and get away with it. You may enjoy a honeymoon period from the time you've committed the crime to the time that you are apprehended, but you will not get away with it. And I think that is another lesson that we're going to take out of this, that no matter how much you can try to corrupt the system, no matter how much you can try to take advantage of weaknesses within the system, ultimately the law will take its course, and that's because we still have very vibrant, well-functioning law enforcement agencies that, notwithstanding such challenges, are able to deal with these matters.
Vincent Gabriel, supporter from Kaya FM. Vincent, the country continues to face a dire energy crisis. The stages have increased, and the promise from the electricity minister that it won't go above stage, or it won't reach stage 8, but it does look bleak for ordinary South Africans. Considering the upcoming investment conference as well as the appointment of the electricity minister, what are the hopes that will come, or the hope post the conference that will assist in really fast-tracking the solutions for the energy crisis from the conference?
Indeed, the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Ramaphosa, has been quite transparent with respect to the scale of the challenge that we are facing as a country as we head into the winter period. Prior to that, the President has also been quite open with respect to the magnitude of the challenge that we are faced with. However, we have a number of factors that kind of guide our optimism with respect to resolving this energy challenge. One, we have an energy action plan that is being executed and some progress is being made, albeit kind of difficult to celebrate because we still have this series of unplanned outages and we still have weaknesses in the reliability of your generation units at Eskom, and that's going to be a problem we're stuck with for some time. But encouragingly is that it's a problem that's being attended to and that's being addressed. So the energy action plan in terms of execution is well underway. There is a tremendous amount of support even from the private sector. As I mentioned earlier on, the establishment of the Resource Mobilization Fund by the private sector is aimed at giving